Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. One more time on that hit show of stories written by a current prisoner, man. Today we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and read an article, man, produced by the Los Angeles Times by an individual by the name of Mathew, orsmeth, a staff writer at the Los Angeles Times. The article was produced on September 12th, 2022, approximately around 5 a.m. This is the headliner. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button on your way out. The headliner reads, right out of Macbeth, a woman's killing shines light on Mexican mafia power struggle in the Inland Empire. Rain fell on the body of a woman in the parking lot outside of Gabby's Cafe, a hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurant in San Bernardino. The killing merited only a few lines in the San Bernardino Sun the next day. The woman suffered several gunshot wounds to the upper torso. Paramedics performed CPR on the woman before an ambulance sped her away. For those of you who are not aware of the women that they are referring to a woman by the name of Carmen Rodriguez, who allegedly was the wife of Huero Verde, another Mexican mafia gang member who was allegedly the leader of the West Side Verdugo street gang. He himself would be murdered. But for those who knew Carmen Rodriguez and who she was married to, her murder that night in January 2017 was incomprehensible. Her husband, Andrew Huero Verde Rodriguez, a member of the Mexican Mafia and a leader of the West Side Verdugo street gang, was arguably the most powerful figure in the San Bernardino underworld. Carmen Rodriguez, authorities were learned, had not been the victim of domestic dispute or a random crime, but an assassination ordered by others in the Mexican Mafia and carried out by Rodriguez underlings in West Side Verdugo. As some of you guys already know, man, Huero Verde had a lot of control in that area, in the whole San Bernardino Riverside area. A lot of people paid taxes to him. They would pay taxes to his wife that would eventually go to him. And authorities, investigators would come to find out that the people responsible for Carmen Rodriguez's murder was, in fact, the same gang members that fell underneath Huero Verde. Yes, it's a cold, cold world, ladies and gentlemen. One story of how Carmen Rodriguez was betrayed by her husband's men unspooled this summer at the trial of her alleged killer. Whether it's the real story remains uncertain. The trial, which included dozens of witnesses and hundreds of pieces of evidence, produced many questions as answers. What the trial made clear is the power the Mexican Mafia holds over the gang members who do its bidding. Told to kill their boss's wife, Andrew Rodriguez's underlings did not hesitate to murder a woman who, until the last minute of her life, they affectionately called Tia and Mom. Wow. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, they confirmed that, man, that it was Huero Verde's men that did this. And not only that, their relationship with this lady, was to an extent where they were calling this lady Tia or Mom. Of course, we know that the name Theo sometimes is referred to individuals in high power, and of course we all know that people that are homeless or people that kick it on the streets, they might refer to someone that they're close to as Mom. But you will see why that term, it's going to send chills down your spine, and you will see why right now. We're going to skip just over a few paragraphs real quick, okay? A well-built man who wore a goatee and dark glasses, Andrew Rodriguez was in early 40s when he was inducted into the Mexican Mafia around 2009. He was a decade into a life sentence he received for holding up a Sears, a sporting goods store in San Bernardino, his third felony conviction. In some circles of his hometown, Rodriguez was revered. A detective recalled at the trial raiding a home on San Bernardino's west side and finding a photograph of Rodriguez propped up on a shelf, the Mexican Mafia's black hand tattoo across the front of his throat. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, some people look up to these people as gods. You know, they would literally sacrifice their lives for them. He himself, Huero Verde, would become deceased. He would be murdered in his cell not too long after. Some people might say it's an accidental overdose. Some people say that it was a straight hit, you know, from the higher ups. A hot shot basically is an accidental overdose. It's exactly what it is, but it's not so accidental. Somebody you confide in, somebody that you trust, someone who's been sticking that needle for you in your arm for the past year is going to be assigned the task to give you just a little extra, to give you more than needed. And once you start nodding off, once you zone out, he's going to give you another one and another one until finally you're out, you're gone, case closed. You go back to the autopsy room, it comes back as an accidental overdose. That's how they get away with. That's how they get away with it nowadays, and more than likely, they always get away with it. Such is the case in this case. Moving on. Rodriguez was the first West Side Verdugo member to be inducted into the Mexican Mafia in 15 years. His ascent offered his gang a chance to turn the page on the tortured past within the organization. The last member of West Side Verdugo to join the Mexican Mafia was Philip Chano Chavez, paroled from Pelican Bay State Prison in 1995. Chavez returned to his neighborhood with intent on settling an old score, a San Bernardino detective wrote in a memo reviewed by the Times. For those of you that don't know, man, San Bernardino has always been active. It has always had a heavy Mexican Mafia presence, influence in that area. You know, there's another rapper, a famous rapper way back in the 90s from Brownside, Danger. You guys know Mad Ass Danger from Brownside. He himself was killed. But from my understanding, he was out from that area. I think he actually was killed out there in the San Bernardino, man. As I said, man, there's been so many murders that have been due to the hands of West Side Verdugo and surrounding gangs in the area, man. Do not get things misconstrued just because it's not LA, just it's not Orange County. Nah, man, it is just as active out there. Chavez harbored a grudge against another member of the gang, Johnny Leche Gutierrez, since the two were teenagers. According to the memo, he believed Gutierrez had told police about a robbery that got him sent to the California Youth Authority. Chavez ordered Gutierrez's nephew to kill him. When he refused, Chavez had another West Side Verdugo member gun down the nephew, the memo said. Wow. So this Mexican Mafia member paroles from Pelican Bay State Prison, and he believes that this individual is responsible from him getting incarcerated way back in the CYA days. He comes back and he orders that individual's nephew to take him out, to murder him. This individual denies to do it. He doesn't want to kill his uncle. So what happens? He himself gets killed. You cannot say no to these people. If they tell you to do something, it's either you or it's them. This is real life. This is crazy. This is going back to the 90s, ladies and gentlemen. 3 weeks later, Chavez and two others were found shot to death outside a home on San Bernardino's west side, according to records reviewed by the Times. One of Gutierrez's brothers told authorities that Gutierrez had shot Chavez, who then crawled under a van. The brother recounted dragging Chavez's body out from under the vehicle to check it for bullet holes. After Chavez was killed, the Mexican Mafia put a green light on West Side Verdugo members in order for the other gangs to attack them behind bars and on the streets. According to prison records, a month later, Gutierrez was found shot to death in the driveway of a San Bernardino home. He was wearing latex scrub and carrying a Mini 14 rifle, according to detectives' memos. His own gang had killed him to lift the green light, informants told police. Wow! So this Mexican Mafia member has this individual killed. He himself was found murdered along with two other bystanders. 3 people were killed. Now, this individual Gutierrez, he himself was found murdered not too long after. He was wearing latex gloves and he was carrying a Mini 14. He was murdered by his own fellow West Side Verdugo gang members in order to lift up the green light that was issued by none other than the Mexican Mafia. You see how that works? It's crazy. It's crazy. Who knows how they gained his confidence? Who knows how they took him out? He was wearing latex gloves in the Mini 14. Maybe they tricked him in believing that he was going on a mission, but yet he was the mission himself all along. It's crazy, ladies and gentlemen. But continue on with the story. This summer, a sheriff's deputy led a short, stocky man in a green jumpsuit to the witness stand of a San Bernardino courtroom. His hands were shackled to his waist. His neck and shaved head were so covered in tattoos they appeared a blue-green. For safety reasons, the prosecution's star witness was identified only by his nickname, Gugu. In exchange for a 25-year prison sentence, the 47-year-old had agreed to plead guilty to manslaughter, admit he'd set up Carmen Rodriguez to be murdered, and testify against the men accused of helping him do it, including 2 of his childhood friends. So this individual ended up getting caught up in the mix, an individual by the name of Gugu, and he has agreed to cooperate with authorities in order to receive a lesser sentence. 2 of the people he's agreeing to testify against are 2 of his childhood friends from his neighborhood barrio. Now, this does not come to a surprise. This happens more than you think. You think that your childhood friends, your neighborhood gangster homies who you've known your whole life, that they're not going to turn on you. Some of them won't. But 9 times out of 10, they are going to turn on you to save their own ass, and such is the case in this one. In 2016, Google told the jury he was released from prison his first day out. He got a call from a fellow member of Westside Verdugo who was still incarcerated, Eric Green Eyes Moreno. Moreno gave him the responsibility of being the llavero or key holder for Westside Verdugo. As llavero, he was to collect taxes and deliver money to their boss, Rodriguez. Gugu said he had known Rodriguez, a distant relative, since he was a child, growing up around the corner from him and his brother. Wow. His first day out, rather than to go hide out and disappear into the sunset, he gets a call and he gets assigned, the keys to the city. Not only that, he's responsible for doing the big homie's dirty work. His first day out, ladies and gentlemen. Moreno was Rodriguez's secretary, a role once typically filled by women who were not in prison, who used visits and letters to pass messages from Mexican mafia members to their underlings. But the proliferation of contraband cell phones in the state prison has proved a game changer, testified Lieutenant Eddie Flores of the San Bernardino Police Department. Prisoners can now communicate directly with one another to arrange drug deals, order assaults, and organize collection rackets, Flores testified. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's not the way it was before, where it would take 2 or 3 months to send out a message or to send out a kite. No, these people are now on the main lines. Literally almost every main line has cell phones. Let's just be real. They are literally talking to each other and making things happen from one day to the other. It's not, no, it's going to take weeks for it to happen. No, at the drop of a hat, if they want it done, they will make it happen. That's truth. That's just facts. Google described his daily routine as Rodriguez's man on the street. I get up in the morning. It's like going to work, having a job, he told the jury. First, he would call someone in the prison system, usually Moreno, from his cell at the state prison in Calipatria, where he was serving 10 years for possessing an assault rifle. Ouch. That's a long prison sentence for being in possession of an assault rifle. Ladies and gentlemen, to take heed. Moreno would tell Gugu what needed to be handled that day. Patch this up here and there, he recalled. Deliver drugs, pick up money. His job took him across his boss's territory, which at this point, law enforcement officials testified compromised all of San Bernardino County and some parts of Riverside County. Sometimes I'd be in the car for 2 days straight, Gugu said. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it just stated right there that this individual, Huero Verde, had control of a lot of San Bernardino and a lot of Riverside County. This individual had a lot of influence and had a lot of power. He testified that he collected about $500 a month from each of Westside Verdugo's cliques and other inland empire gangs, such as Bioma. Hesperia, Casablanca, and Eastside and Southside Riva. He would turn over the money to Rodriguez's wife, Carmen, who had married him in prison in 2015. Google revered Andrew and Carmen Rodriguez, who he called Tia or Aunt. An ex-girlfriend testified that his phone's background was a photograph of the couple. Her, she asked, why wasn't a picture of her? That's my family, she recalled him saying. Wow. So this guy had such a relationship with Huero Verde and his wife Carmen that his screensaver on his phone, his background, was of Huero Verde and Carmen. That's my family, he says to his girlfriend. It just goes to show the mindset, the mentality. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, he was getting kicked down $500 a month from each and every single one of these gangs in that region. And I can only imagine, man, there's literally dozens of gangs out in that area. I can only imagine the number that's amassed at the end of each of these collections. By 2017, Rodriguez's standing in the Mexican mafia had become precarious. Some believe it was because he was close with Arthur Turi Estrada, a Mexican mafia from Rancho Cucamonga, who had pushed for Rodriguez to become a member. After consolidating a grip of the drug trade in many California prisons and the streets of Riverside County, Estrada alienated others in the organization who, resentful of the money influence he had amassed, pushed to revoke his authority. Estrada eventually fell out of favor around 2015, lost control of his territories, and saw his brother and right hand murdered. Man, as you can see, when you're involved in this, it can never end good. Turi from Cucamonga, you guys already know who he is, a former Mexican mafia member. His brother was killed. His right hand man was killed. He himself was responsible for making members. He himself now allegedly has a target on his back. It never ends well joining or being associated with these criminal organizations, ladies and gentlemen. One gang member speaking anonymously for fear of reprisal told the Times, the tipping point came when Rodriguez sent a crew to Victorville to rob relatives of another Mexican mafia gang member. So allegedly, that's what did it. That was the turning point for Mr. Huero Verde, Mexican mafia member from West Side Verdugo. Allegedly, he made the mistake of sending people out there to Victorville to rob the family members of a known Mexican mafia member. That was the turning point for him, allegedly. But for whatever the reason, other Mexican mafia members decided to put Rodriguez on disregard, meaning no one was to carry out his orders or deliver money to him. Google and other witnesses testified. But his wife was defiant and continued to collect taxes. On his behalf, according to testimony. The evening of January 18, 2017, Google joined a conference call with Moreno and two other inmates, Richard Easy Garcia and Mathew Nips Manzano, who were on cell phones in different prisons. Google had known Garcia, who was serving a life sentence in prison for murder, since they were teenagers coming up on Westside Verdugo's So Crazy Ones clique. Manzano had been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for killing two men in 2005. It does not come as to a surprise that someone responsible for two murders is inside a prison system on a cell phone, now issuing out hits, now issuing out murders. That's all he has is that power left. And it's crazy how some people just have such disregard for life, how easily they will send orders to have someone killed. It's very sick, ladies and gentlemen. Moreno led the meeting. He said he received an order to kill Carmen Rodriguez. Google testified. Everyone went quiet. I told them, are you sure? Are you sure this is the right thing? Google recalled. He said he had asked if there's any other way this can be handled. Moreno said no. Authorities believe several members of the Mexican mafia voted to kill Carmen Rodriguez. Lieutenant Mike Martinez of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department testified they have managed to identify only Danny Popeye Roman, a major figure in the organization who was later stabbed to death in prison, Martinez says. We already know who Danny Popeye Roman is of the Harpies gang. You know, he himself was murdered, if I'm not mistaken. Do not quote me this. It was at Corcoran Prison. He was murdered by another Mexican mafia member by the name of Spy out of the Lenox area. Moreno didn't say who had ordered Carmen Rodriguez's murder. Google testified only that it needed to be done that night. Google would lure her to her death. Moreno said he'd already talked to the man who would kill her, Isaac Crook Aguirre. Google testified. Moreno didn't say who had ordered Carmen Rodriguez's murder. Google testified only that it needed to be done that night. Google would lure her to her death. Moreno said he'd already talked to the man who would kill her, Isaac Crook Aguirre. Google testified. 20 years earlier, Google testified Aguirre had been accused of having dry snitched in a murder case, trying to get another member of his gang to incriminate himself on a recorded jail phone. The allegation had hung over his head ever since. Killing Carmen Rodriguez, Google testified, was the only way to get out of bad graces. Wow. So this individual crook allegedly was responsible for having his fellow homeboy incriminate himself in this murder trial. Now that has been lingering around and damaging his reputation for years. So in order to clean that up, rather than to walk away and disappear in Texas somewhere, his reputation's everything, and he's gonna go to the extent to kill someone just so he can be in good graces, just so he can be accepted by his fellow mere acquaintances in this gang world. It's crazy what some people might do for reputation. Google testified he handed a .38 revolver to Aguirre, who angrily told him that Moreno, Garcia, and Manzano wanted to be on the phone listening as he killed Carmen Rodriguez. It was a messed up thing to begin with, Google said. I wasn't happy about it. I knew I wasn't happy. Did you hear that? These individuals in prison wanted to be on the phone. They wanted to listen to this person being murdered. They wanted to confirm they hit 100%, no mistakes being made. That's a little sick. That's a little twisted. Can you imagine being in a cell and setting this up, and then knowing deep down inside that you're about to get that phone call around 6 p.m. because you set something up and you're about to listen to something that's so disturbing. But yet this is really happening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a cold, cold world, man. It's a cold, cold world. Google lured in Carmen Rodriguez by saying he had money to give her. From prison, Moreno and Manzano sent her directions to Gabby's Cafe. Okay, moms, Manzano wrote in a WhatsApp message, adding a smiling emoji. Just wanted to be easy for you. Google was waiting in the Mercury Grand Marquis when Carmen Rodriguez parked 2 spots away, her 14-year-old daughter in the passenger seat of the Hyundai Elantra. She got out and started to walk toward him. In the back of his mind, he said he wondered if he was... She got out and started to walk toward him. In the back of his mind, he said he wondered if he too was about to be killed. He slumped down in his seat. It's a dirty game, he told the jury. It's a dirty game. I've seen it before. So not only did they use manipulation tactics and they make her feel comfortable, and they made her believe that everything was alright by calling her moms and that everything was all good. Obviously these were the same people that she's been dealing with for months. Not only that, but her daughter was in the car. That wasn't incentive or motivation enough for them to cancel the hit. No. They went ahead and carried out the hit. They didn't care if the daughter was in the car. Like I said, it's a cold, cold world. Google testified that he heard 5 gunshots and saw Carmen Rodriguez fall to the ground. He reversed out of the parking lot and sped off into the night. Later that night, his then girlfriend testified Google picked her up at an abandoned home where she'd been staying and said he had done something horrible. On cross-examination, Aguirre's attorney, Melanie Rowe, tried to get Google to admit that he had rolled down his window and fired the fatal shots himself. Rowe argued that Google had dispassionately planned the murder of a woman he had affectionately called Tia. So Aguirre's attorney allegedly believes that this individual, Google, is the one responsible for the murder. Now, like I said, the reason why she believes that is, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, there's so many people out there who have twisted up the situation and have planned in murders on their fellow homies. They're smart. Some people are the sly, the slick, and the wicked, and they will frame you to save themselves. It has happened time and time again, ladies and gentlemen. I was disturbed, he said over and over again. Ma'am, I'm not an animal. I have feelings. I was disturbed. George apparently did not believe his story. After a 2-month trial, they acquitted Aguirre of murder. He walked out of court a free man in July. After spending 5 years in jail, he declined to comment. Manzano previously had been convicted of murder and given another life term. Midway through his own trial, Garcia pleaded guilty to manslaughter and got 30 years on top of his life without parole sentence he was already serving. Rowe said she absolutely believes Google shot Carmen Rodriguez and criticized prosecutors for giving him a plea deal. A spokeswoman for the district attorney's office didn't return a request for comment. Wow. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this person 100% firmly agrees that this individual, Google, perhaps somewhat twisted and manipulated the situation. I'm telling you, when it comes to situations like this, sometimes they never get the fall guy, the right guy. Days after she was killed, Andrew Rodriguez's brother, Perry, was found dead from a gunshot wound in San Bernardino. The killing was ruled a suicide, but Rowe, who reviewed police reports of the incident, said their circumstances were suspicious to her. A lone witness left the scene, but then called police an hour later to report the death, she said. Shunned by others in the Mexican mafia, ignored by his own crew, his wife murdered, Andrew Rodriguez was himself found dead 4 months later in his cell at Pelican Bay, overdosed on heroin. Authorities suspect, but have never been able to prove, that he was killed with a hot shot and an intentional overdose. Ignore. Shunned by others in the Mexican mafia, ignored by his own crew, his wife murdered, Andrew Rodriguez was himself found dead 4 months later in his cell at Pelican Bay, overdosed on. Authorities suspect, but have never been able to prove, that he was killed by a hot shot and an intentional overdose. This is a tactic that they use time and time again. They will make you overdose yourself in order to get away with it. Autopsy reports come back as accidental overdose. This is a sick, twisted method that they've used for decades. The gangs he controlled and the monthly payments he collected were parceled out to other Mexican mafia members, according to testimony and wiretap calls played at trial. This is right out of Macbeth, Rowe said. This was a murder committed for the purposes of a land grab, a territorial grab. Wow. So this person is basically stating that one of the reasons why he was murdered was due to his property, due to his territories that fell underneath him. And basically these other members wanted his territory. That's just what this person believes. And then there was Moreno. The night before he was brought the night before he was to be brought to San Bernardino County to face charges of murdering Carmen Rodriguez, a guard at Kern Valley State Prison found the 30-year-old strangled in his cell. Moreno's cellmate, a member of Westside Verdugo serving a life sentence for torturing a man to death, has been charged with this killing. He was ordered by a Mexican mafia member to kill Moreno, the only person who could name the people who had directed Carmen Rodriguez's murder, before he got on the bus to San Bernardino the next morning, according to law enforcement source and a Mexican mafia associate with knowledge of his death. So they believed that this individual, Moreno, would bring down the whole plot. They believed that this individual possessed too much information, too much vital information that would come back and bite all of them in the ass. So rather than to risk it all, it's easier just to dispose of this individual. Can you imagine that? This guy, Moreno, was in prison. He was responsible for pulling strings and having this lady killed, only to come to find out that things started to get a little hot. Things started to, get a little spotlight on them. And what happens? They decide to kill him and take him out. Why? Because he has too much information. It's too much of a risk. It's a safety hazard having him alive. He can bring the whole ship down. So let's protect ourselves and take him out. He's expendable. We're not. Wow. So ladies and gentlemen, this was an article produced by the Los Angeles Times. This is nothing new. I'm not spelling out any new information that's not already published out there. I just thought it was a fascinating read. It was a great article. For those of you who haven't checked it out, please go check it out, man. Los Angeles Times. And man, please hit that like and subscribe on your way out. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was one hell of an article produced by the Los Angeles Times. And it's a cold world, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, man, this gentleman, man, he himself was killed by his friends. His wife was killed. The hitters, the people responsible for ordering the shots, they were killed. It seems that anybody being associated with this type of stuff is subject to being killed, man. It's a cold world. It's a cold game, man. As you can see, these people will either flip on you, they will have you killed at the drop of a hat, and when things get hot, they will turn on you to save themselves. So think twice, man, before you roll the dice, because it ain't nothing nice, man. This game banging lifestyle's for the birds, man. And nobody is safe, especially when you're associated. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.